who was the last, I believe, pointed out to us that the president operates using the Roy Cohn playbook of declaring a victory even when there is no victory. And that's what happened with that strike. I don't think the strike was uneventful and ineffective, but I think that at the very least there was a degree of hyperbole. I think among many people who are time-critical thinking observers of both Iran and this president, the veracity of such a claim. Even if he had been accurate about it, he made the claim before there was a post-action analysis made. Sort of like when two people were shot and killed by federal agents in Minnesota, and before the first crime scene photo was taken, forensic experts trying to determine what happened, the first was interviewed, the administration came out with a declaration of what happened and how the agent did appropriately. And then again did it with this so-called shovel attack on an ICE agent, or several ICE agents, where a guy was shot but not killed. I think you know, when you're in a position such as that, it may be politically expedient and it may be self-gratifying to make such pronouncements because it sounds great. We're going to hear it tomorrow during the State of the Union. We're the hottest country in the world. I've stopped at least 8 wars. 8 wars I stopped that I deserved the Nobel Peace Prize, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Well, sometimes when such hyperbole is used, there are no serious consequences to them. But today there are. I think he either lied then or he's lying now, and of course there comes your confusion and the confusion of anybody else who has not been on the dark side of the moon and watching this with any degree of interest. Thank you, Howard. We'll now go to Scott, followed by Stan. And I accept a challenge to that observation. If I'm wrong, I would love to be corrected. Scott.
Yeah, I mean, look, I think, I don't know like what exactly would be an acceptable deal, but I think on one level, right, if you look at all the world's conflicts, they boil down to, I mean, there are 2 kinds of nations in the world, right? There are liberal nations and illiberal nations. By liberal, I mean, there are nations that are Republican-style governments, democracies, where they are participatory liberal democracies with free markets and, what we think of as relatively open societies. And there are illiberal societies, right, which are the rest of them. And then I assume society is sort of like making a transition from one to the other. Either way, sometimes. Some people would think we're sliding into illiberalism. But so on one level, liberal nations don't go to war with each other, right? We had a dust up with France and England, 2 years ago? You're going to have an English Channel and shipping rights. Nobody thought England and France were going to go to war, right? Liberal nations don't go to war with each other. All conflicts are between 2 illiberal nations or a liberal and an illiberal nation, right? So this is an example where you have, I think, an arch illiberal state, Iran, in tension and conflict with Israel, our ally, and us. We see as they see as the great Satan, right? We're the problem. Liberalism is the problem, right? Liberalism is the great Satanism. So, I mean, what do you do there? I mean, look, we we successfully used containment with the Soviet Union and a liberal force that was more powerful and wanted our demise. So I don't know. I mean, but on one level, you have to do a lot of Reagan trust but verify. I mean, just assume they're not. But these are not. You know, Obama said something I thought that was profound. People that didn't like the nuclear deal. He said, "Look, you don't make deals like this with your friend. They're not our friends, right? They're not friends of anything we stand for, right? As far as Westerners, as far as things about the sovereignty of the individual, religious freedom, free ideas, free markets, free expression among gender. Name it, name whatever you want. That regime is not friend. That's not what the people. I'm talking about the regime. So yeah, I mean, I don't know how you. But I mean, how do you? Again, I've said this before. I think this is not a situation like Iraq. I think or Egypt, where you're thinking, oh my gosh, the alternative could be worse. I wouldn't worry about something much worse than the current regime, right? I mean, but still, you do have to deal with the chaos. And what do you do if the regime falls? If it falls, what military would it take? Do Americans have the stomach for an intervention like this? I mean, and the irony is Trump became president because of failed Middle Eastern interventionism, right? Because Bush Jr., pretty much ruined Bush family name through his sort of attempt at Middle Eastern nation building. This is why Trump came in, because he said, this kind of stuff is a bad idea. So, I don't know. I don't know. I guess all you can do is trust but verify. I don't know. Don't trust and verify, I guess, in this situation. Thanks, Gary.
So in your mind, what could there be in such an agreement that would be palatable to the current administration?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. What are the carrots and sticks involved, right? I mean, part of what Obama got, like we had their frozen money, right? And so they wanted access to that. We didn't give them money, like people said, that was a misconstrued what Obama did, but we had their assets frozen. We unfroze some of their assets. We didn't pay them off. We unfroze their assets. It's an incentive for them to scale back the nuclear program to stop. But, they're going to do everything they can to get a nuclear program, a weapon, right? I mean, come on. That's just, they're going to do everything they can. So I don't know how you mitigate that stuff. I don't know. It's a great question, Gary. I mean, for better minds, but we have Wyckoff, who's a man of the world, and Jared Kushner. So, we're in great hands in that regard. He's sophisticated.
Well, Kushner does get credit, a lot of the credit for the Abraham Accords. So who knows what he might be, what magic he's able to weave there in Geneva on Thursday. Stan, followed by El Normo.
Sorry about that. So thank you for having this room. And I think there have been some interesting comments. In my mind, there's different plausible outcomes. One plausible outcome is to solve the problem about them potentially producing a nuclear weapon. I believe that that's fully negotiable if we want to do that, because they will acquiesce and allow various means of monitoring, supervision in such a way that they can't produce a nuclear weapon. I know that there's claims that they can't be trusted, but I'm sure that at this point we could implement an agreement that would limit their capacity there if that was the outcome we wanted. An alternate outcome is to eliminate any support of their terrorism going forward, and I should say alternate or additional outcome. I think that would be something that most people throughout the world would want, and that's more challenging on how you implement that. I don't want to put the framework together, but that would be a desirable outcome. An additional desirable outcome would be regime change. That would be great for the Iranian people. But I do think that the U.S. Mossad, so let's just say 70% US, 30% Mossad, is responsible for 50% of the deaths right now. And we as a country should accept that the people died there because they were encouraged by our agents to do what happened. So the people that died, so the Iranian regime counteracted our attempts to get involved in to overthrowing their government by hiring foreigners or non-Iranians to come shoot on their own people, which is awful. But we knew what we were getting into. We knew what the likely outcome was, and we did it. So we're responsible for 50% of the deaths or so. I don't know. I'm just putting a ballpark out of there. So, and when I say we, I'm clearly saying a portion is the U.S. and a portion is the Mossad, the country that supports Mossad. So the further thing I want to emphasize here is part of this is a distraction. And the most important thing for us and for the rest of the world is that we put regulations around AI because it's starting to eviscerate jobs. The knowledge industry,
which is a different topic.
I know, but the reason I'm bringing it up, this serves as a distraction from not doing the right thing.
Well, every topic serves as a distraction from another topic in the minds of somebody, and I can't recall a day that has not been articulated by someone about something, their pet issue that they feel that whatever discussion we're having detracts from what they want to discuss. So I recommend creating a room to discuss that. If we or recommending to me that I use it as a topic in the future. I'm happy to hear all such recommendations. Now, Norma followed by Hermes.
All right. Thank you, Gary. So I got a bunch of stuff. I'm not sure if the suggestion that the U.S. and Israel are responsible for people dying in Iran deserves any serious response, except to say that such a statement is morally bankrupt. And enough said about that. The JCPOA didn't stop Iranian nuclear enrichment. It delayed it. And it would have expired on October 18th of 2025. And looking back, I think we're probably in better shape that we were able to financially strangle Iran finally. And by the way, the European Union joined America in doing that. And also bomb its nuclear sites. So I checked on the president's quotes, and I would say calling them a lie is not accurate. What he said was we completely and totally obliterated key Iranian nuclear facilities, including Fordo. And again, checking, we dropped 12 30,000-pound mops or massive ordnance penetrators. I think I have that right. The military, I don't want to say nerds, but the military obsessives here. Correct me if I got that wrong, but I think I got that. So it's, and we dropped them through the ventilation shaft to ensure even more penetration. So it's not that bad to say that we obliterated those nuclear sites. At best, it's an exaggeration. Maybe it's hyperbole, but it doesn't sound inaccurate, actually. If you drop 12 of our most powerful bombs, short of nuclear bombs, on a site with the kind of accuracy that we achieved with American and Israeli intelligence working together, doesn't sound too bad, actually, to say that we obliterated those facilities. I want to also point out that Israel is the top target. Israel and the United States are the top the big state in the United States and the little state in Israel are the top targets of record for the Iranian genocide regime. but in fact, this regime is responsible for the death of easily over 1 million Arabs, tragically. And I'm thinking of the estimate of around 350,000 in Yemen, around 650,000 in Syria, with occupying Hezbollah forces there, obviously occupying Houthi forces in Yemen, and of course the occupying Hezbollah force in Lebanon. More dead there, and then of course more dead in the 8-year war with Iraq. So in fact, it's well over 1 million Sunnis and Sunni Arabs from this regime. So 1 million dead should be enough to stop any regime by a power like the United States, the world's policeman. So again, as I'm sure folks have noticed, I like to offer different and perhaps less common perspectives on stuff. Let me just see if I guess I actually took a few notes on these things. So that's kind of, and what deal would be acceptable? Well, there's about 4 asks, and there's a few things that we could do to achieve those goals. So as I recall, the asks are obviously no more enrichment, then no more ballistic missiles, then no more foreign terror forces, and no more killing your own people. So those would be, I would think, the top 4 asks, and I don't know that we're likely to get all of them, but that would be the asks. And in addition to outright military strikes, I think we could and should turn the internet back on there, if we have a way of doing that. I know we have ways of turning it off and discombobulating people with our famous discombobulator. I don't know if we know how to turn it back on, but I think it's something that the Iranian people would appreciate, and we get an idea of how bad this Iranian genocide regime has been destroying its own people, and to stop their shadow banking system, which right now runs through our allies in Dubai. That's something that we can do. They do seem to be suffocating right now, this genocide regime. This seems to be a really apt time to strike them while they're vulnerable, while Israel has already knocked out all of their air defenses. And finally, I saw the notice yesterday, which you guys may not have gotten. I got this from the Financial Times, that they're buying 1,000 shoulder-launched anti-aircraft defense, I don't know what you want to call them, like Stinger. I don't know what the current name for them is. But anyway, shoulder-launched anti-aircraft missile launchers from Russia. I don't know how good they'll be or if they'll be effective, but it's something to be concerned about. And by the way, the military brains on this are in a complete agreement that this is not a bluff, that Trump intends to do something, but he was not tipping his hand, obviously. And as I think is civilized, he's giving the Iranians every opportunity to make a deal before they feel the wrath of the world superpower. And by the way, I think China is watching us very closely, because it's possible that they're the real audience for this, in addition to the rest of the world, because we're anticipating their move on their move on Taiwan next year. And that's all I got. Thank you, guys.
Thank you for that, El Normal. I will point out, since you challenged what Howard and I said, that you got to be a little more judicious. I think we need to be judicious in quoting the president, because he says a lot of things, and sometimes he does not complete thoughts, and you can cherry pick, I guess, whatever you want to refute what Howard said and I underscored. And I'm happy to provide some of the citations for this, but if you go to Wikipedia, which in itself cites sources, the U.S. forces attacked those 3 key nuclear facilities and these attacks had, quote, completely and totally obliterated Iran's nuclear enrichment facilities and capacity. I think that's pretty unambiguous. So I don't think it's wrong to say that he either lied then or he's lying now, that it's necessary for us to eliminate or Iran to eliminate its nuclear enrichment program. The White House during that period described the operation as a resounding success, expressed confidence that Iran's enriched uranium stockpiles and enrichment infrastructure have been effectively destroyed. I see a third citation where senior U.S. officials argued that the attacks had taken away Iran's ability to produce a nuclear weapon and made the United States and its allies safer. So why are we moving all these military assets at least? To echo Howard's very prudent question, which was not debunked through one quote of the president. Hermes, followed by William.
Thank you, Gary. There's been a lot said, and I want to give a little bit of a different perspective. As you guys asked, folks, and I see all war is wrong. Some war is necessary, right? You need to defend yourself from an attacking country. But I don't know if you saw where these Buddhist monks were walking from Texas to D.C. It was
yeah, there was a lot of coverage of that. In fact, my news organization gave it coverage.
Yeah, maybe we need to take a page from their playbook, so to speak, right? Maybe we need to at least maybe start considering the message that they were trying to spread. And what I always thought so amazing about that walk with the monks is when they would come into the towns, the people would just start bawling as soon as they would see them, right? And a psychologist, I guess, said that, well, we as humans, we identify pure good. And when we see it, in whatever form, right, we become emotional. But thank you, Gary, for the link.
Do you think that a bunch of Buddhist monks walking across Iran would reach the heart of the mullahs, who are Islamist fascists, fundamentalists, and get them to lay down their arms and their attempt to spread their form of Islam across the world? By the way, it's not just the Jews and the Christians that the mullahs hate. It's those who do not ascribe to their form of Islam, of course. But that's obscured sometimes in the discourse. But you think that if we, instead of dropping bombs launched from those two aircraft carriers, trained Buddhist monks trained in parachuting, and dropped them over Iran, and they walked across Iran, that it would touch the heart of the regime and they would give up these aspirations?
I would like to believe that, yes, I would. But I got a better idea, Gary. What if we take these months and we make like each one a world leader of every country?
Well, I don't know that we have the ability to do that, but thank you anyway, Hermes. It's nice that you are a dreamer, and I know you're not the only one. Did I come up with that? Or did somebody else come up with it first? William, followed by Brent.
I actually agree with a lot of what you said and a lot of what Norm said. I don't think you can negotiate with Iran any more than you can negotiate with Putin. They want what they want. And I don't know that they will seriously be dissuaded. And if they claim that they're dissuaded, I don't believe they would actually live up to dropping what they want, which is to, as the theocratic regime, to oppress the people. I don't see that changing. And I also agree with you. You can't rely upon what Trump says, but he's the president we have, so you have to at least listen to what he says and look for other sources of information to see what the hell is going on.
So, in that regard, which one of his pronouncements are truthful? That the uranium enrichment program in Iran was obliterated by our attacks, or that it needs to be ended through these negotiations or a subsequent attack if the negotiations are unsuccessful? Which is the truth after going through the secondary sources?
I don't think either of them are truthful because I start with the presumption that everything that comes out of his mouth is lying, because most of the time he will contradict himself within the same speech or the same paragraph. I guess we'll see the State of the Union soon and see how much he ad-libs and contradicts himself there. But I don't see. So you can't rely upon what he says. I think he's probably lying about the obliteration, because it's a braggadocious thing for him to say. Maybe there was some degradation, but I would need to get that from an alternative source to actually confirm it. And I don't think we have very good assets on the ground that report back to us. Maybe they report back to other intelligence agencies, but we're not in the intelligence agencies. So, who the hell knows? But I don't think he can rely upon what he says. I presume that he's lying or hyperbole or exaggerating, but I doubt that everything was obliterated. And I saw some other reporting that says, they still have highly enriched uranium or whatever the physical material it is that they were working on. So that answers that. As far as what Norm said, with the internet, we could restore the internet with Starlink, but you need to be able to put ground stations in.
Well, they have attempted to do that, and I will give Elon Musk, who I sometimes am quite critical of, a lot of credit for doing that in this case. But the Iranians have countermeasures to that as well. That's the problem. So I just checked, and there is some restoration of the internet. It's very sketchy, but the Iranian government, as technologically advanced as they are in these kinds of sciences or technologies, so too are the people, and they are using VPNs extensively to get their messages out. And that's why we've been seeing recently video that purports to be major clashes on university campuses. And I think that's about the best we can anticipate restoring at this particular point, Landon.
They also get the assistance of the Russians in shutting down communications and walling off their people from being able to communicate with the outside world. The Russians are good at this, and North Korea is good at this, and that's so another one of their potential or actual allies. And as far as the air defenses, I saw a report. I don't know if it's true, but there's I believe it is, from the photographs I saw, but it's hard to tell, that China is actually assisting with air defenses, that they have some sort of research vessel parked in the Persian Gulf, and that they are able to track and feed information that would supplement whatever air defenses they have intact. I don't know if Israel 100%, and I don't know if they were able to replenish those. I think they were using Russian S-300s, S-400s to track what was going on, but I don't know how many they have left or what they have left, but I think they are getting an assist from China.
Well, somebody called some of these countries the axis of evil, and that somebody may have been right. Thank you, William. We'll go to Brent, followed by Vendetta.
So, a lot of policy choices, especially foreign policy, are about choices. You know, the JCPOA didn't deal with a lot of issues outside the nuclear program, but what it did restrict enrichment to 3.67%. You know, it did cap the amount of tons of enrichment behavior or enriched material at a lower rate to 300 to 300 kilograms. You know, you're now at thousands of kilograms, 20 and 60% enriched uranium. And it did allow the IAEA to do consistent monitoring and go into the Iranian state and get their best assessment of it. Now, the other thing it did was it created a diplomatic framework so you could work jointly if the group of countries, Germany, UK, France, China, and Russia kind of jointly agreed that the Iranians were in violation of the agreement. We unilaterally left, and we said that we're, under the first Trump administration, we're going to do a maximum pressure, and then under this administration, we opted for military strikes. The problem with the military strikes has always been you have a crap ton of enriched uranium already in Iran, and the only way to really get rid of that is to go in on the ground and search the country and get rid of it. There's really no other way around it. Uranium enrichment, if you look at it from a technical standpoint, really the hardest part of uranium enrichment is going from essentially uranium ore to kind of the first enrichment levels. Like when you get to 20%, especially when you get to 60%, you're very close to just being able to hit the gas pedal and make it to 90% and get weapons grade material. So I think at the end of the day, that this sort of leaving a diplomatic solution and leaving a cooperative framework with our partners is showing itself the downside of doing that. We are essentially alone besides Israel in the world in dealing with this problem. The Iranian state is closer than ever to a nuclear weapon than it's ever been in its history. And they're backed into a corner, and it's a really scary place for the world, and it's a really scary place for the Middle East. So I'll leave it there.
Brett, there are a lot of people who are, thank you for that, very critical of the JCPOA. I was exchanging messages today with somebody who, I'll tell you who it was Avi Perry, who wanted to come here today and couldn't. And, he's kind of like our resident expert when he's available when it comes to the Middle East and Israel and Iran. And I opined that perhaps the Obama administration was more pragmatic in recognizing that if military activity, I wrote this as well, by the way, in the chat over the weekend, if military activity is off the table, because that's a big decision to make, then the diplomatic solution is all that's on the table, and that in spite of its various failings, the JCPOA at least was something. And his response was, it was the worst thing that could be done. It was horrible, blah, 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 blah. I'm not an expert, but I've done some research in preparation for today's discussion because I knew that there would be continued references to the JCPOA, which for the uninitiated stands for Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action. So that was a 2015 nuclear deal. Under it, Iran agreed to limit enrichment to 3.67% for civilian nuclear generation. 3.67%. After the United States withdrew from the deal in 2018 during the first Trump administration, Iran gradually increased the enrichment level. These are, by the way, IAEA figures, International Energy Agency figures I'm looking at. Iran initially increased enrichment to 20%, and then later to 60%. Those are the numbers. People can reach their own conclusions, and they can make whatever political statements they may want to make, maligning Mr. Obama and Mr. Biden and Mr. Trump based on their own partisan viewpoints. I'm just reading the facts as presented by the recognized authority, the United Nations International Atomic Energy Agency. Vendetta, followed by Dr. Francine. And folks, we are now at 5:59 Eastern Time. We are no longer inviting folks onto the stage, but in about 38 seconds, we will go into extra time. Okay, I lied. 2 seconds. It's now 6 o'clock. We are now into extra time so that everybody on the stage and in queue will have an opportunity to speak. So we'll go to Vendetta, followed by Dr.
Hello, Gary, and everybody else. Firstly, I'm gonna have to apologize because I'm behind the weak connection VPN because I'm talking from Tehran. Yeah, GCPOA was something really. It was fresh blood into Islamic regime's body. That's what gave them power and bought them a lot of time to grow their proxies, also to work on their military tactics and everything, and expansions, and also certainly on their nuclear capabilities.
So how do you reconcile your observation from inside the country, which is much better than anything that I could hope to present based on looking things up on the internet as I just have? But how do you reconcile that observation to what I just read from the United Nations International Atomic Energy Agency website?
Look, the fact of the matter is that we know our regime better than anyone else because we've lived with them. We know their personality, and we know that they're not an honest regime. So nobody can trust them. So if they deploy any sort of strategy, their main focus is to buy time in order to be able to do whatever they wanted to. And I'm sure that
right.
President...
I did mention that, Vendetta, a little earlier, that they do this. But I just want to know specifically how it is that when we left the JCPOA, the 3.67%, which may have been a lie, enrichment program erupted to 20% and then later to 60%.
Sure, you can say that this was the original reason why it happened, but when I'm talking about them not being honest, it's because I know that at the same time, there have been several facilities, nuclear facilities that have been, the government had been working on. And I remember at some point, Netanyahu also pointed out to several hidden sites that they were developing. One was in Turkizabad. This is a secret location at the outskirts of Tehran. And this was one of the sites that they were able to discover through stealing several hundred of thousand documents from inside the country. So this tells us that this regime is capable to rebuild whatever they have, because the knowledge is already there. So they just need time and resources to rebuild what they were working on, which is their original goal. And that's basically through their ideology, because they need power. Because if I want to go back to their main ideology, I can go back to the beginning of Islam, where it was created basically in a land as dry as Saudi Arabia, and their strategy was to attack other nations to get resources, because they couldn't stay in one place.
Right. That's getting a little bit too broad in the
But anyway, so I try to say that whatever they have in mind as their ideology roots back at something very historical, and this is the fact that
Agreed.
at the beginning of
Agreed. That's a fair point.
Sure. You say Trump is basically has been honest about one thing when he said they completely annihilated their Iranian nuclear program at one point, and then he said that we have to destroy that, or we have to get to some sort of agreement in order to limit that. So I'm not going to judge that, because whatever I've learned from President Trump is that he tries to look misleading. So he says one thing, but he does another. We don't know, and I'm sure the Islamic regime doesn't know how to handle, or at least they cannot really predict the next moves. And that makes sense to me. But here, look at the points that we really live with on the ground. Last night, the news for us was that, okay, the amount of pizzas being ordered at the Pentagon for the night had been abnormally increased. So this, to us people in Iran, means that, okay, something is going on. So that means that, okay, a military action is very imminent. So hence, this to me personally in my life means that I have to go to the ATM machines to gather as much cash as I can, so that in case of a probable attack, I would have some cash in my hand. So these are the things that we actually live with. It's not such that Trump said this and he did that and this. These are the signals that we try to live with inside Iran. But the real question for us is that will mullahs surrender? The answer to me is no, they will never surrender. And in my mind, in my life, the current negotiations is not actually over an actual deal to limit their nuclear programs. It's over whether the mullahs will surrender peacefully, and by surrender, it means they will agree to some sort of peaceful change of the mechanism where they will, turn Khamenei and his son, which is going to be...
Just a quick interjection. What about the IPP project?
Yeah, sure. That is a huge discussion. That is a very huge discussion.
Is that a good example of what you're talking about?
No. Look.
Oh, sorry. I misunderstood. That's my bad.
No. Yeah, sure. But anyway, that is a big discussion apart from this, because we're now discussing whatever up to the point of a regime change or an agreement with the entire world, Iran versus the West. Okay, after that, there are other formulas, other discussions, and it's a whole different game. But I know for a fact that mullahs will not surrender, even though some part of the regime especially the reformists, would basically be showing green signals to the West that they would be ready for a regime change if they would be in control in the next order, and maybe they will. This is not my something I want. The only thing that I would vote for is a regime change towards a democratic Iran. But I also know that this is not that the neighboring countries of Iran would want. Like, for instance, in the case of, I don't know, I can name countries one by one, and I would say why they wouldn't want that. Turkey would come into competition based on the military and economical things with Iran. Arabs would be competing over the oil. Pakistan would be competing over military things. Russia is basically against that because to Russia, Iran is a cash cow. But I also know that if the West weakened Russia, they would first have to put Iran in a situation that cannot support Russia in their goals. And also, I know that if the situation is stable in Iran, then probably the Western countries, especially the Americans, be dealing with the issue with China more easily. So that's, I would say, even if there will be an agreement, it's a long-term plan to weaken the mullahs, but I also know that this is a strategy that has been tested over time, and we know that mullahs also, from the other hand, are looking for more time to, I don't know, reform and regather their strength and do whatever they have been doing so far, and there will not be a change in their strategy. And I will quote Mark Levin, whose post President Trump reposted in his Truth social account, and he said that there is no better time for the West to get over the situation in Iran. If we don't do that, we have to answer to the future generations, because any deal with the Iranians would basically mean another blood injection to the body of this regime, same as Obama, same as whatever, I don't know, Democrat or whatever president or whatever they have done in the past. Mullahs only are looking for time. This is the only thing that we inside Iran as the people agree over, no matter what tribe or ethnic or political background or whatever we belong to. This is what we know for sure. And that's why at the moment, all the people in Iran, this might sound very odd to you, but everybody who's against the government, which I think in my mind is 90%, maybe more than 90% of people, and also part of the system where the reformists, they want this current system gone because it's expired. It's not functioning. It's against the order of the region and also soon the order in the world, like, because as you have known, they're basically assisting Russia in whatever they're doing. And this is what everybody wants. But after that, okay, the neighboring countries wouldn't agree with the democratic Iran, at least an Iran under control would be a better option. But I don't know, some
silence in the frame. Circle emotion. How about them bright line? Will and slow devotion. Breath becomes the only sign. Left hand, right hand, folded at my core. Every step I'm choosing, every step I'm more. feeling the pain. Question on the altar, answer in the air. I fall into the sand, find you everywhere. What if you just choose? What if every opening is mine to use? What if every heartbeat signs your name? Every quiet step lays the same. We'll wait one, running on your feet. Following the time is unknown. Jesus, sorry, I'm not here. River in my veins, laying on the wind, silence in the fray. Circle in motion, I walk that thin bright line. Will and slow devotion, breath becomes the only sign. Left hand brave, hand folded in